Anneliese Michel was a young German woman who underwent 67 Catholic exorcism rites in the year before her death, which was ultimately caused by malnutrition and dehydration. Her parents and the priests involved were convicted of negligent homicide. But how did all that happen? Was Anneliese really possessed by the devil, or was it mental illness? What does Anneliese herself had to say about it in her comprehensive journal entries, and what about the taped recordings of the exorcism sessions? Stick around for a deep dive into the ordeal of a young teenager that became the basis for the 2005 film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. Anneliese Michel was born on September 21, 1952, in Leibelfing, Bavaria, West Germany, to a Roman Catholic family. Her parents were Josef and Anna Michel, and she had three younger sisters, Gertrude, Barbara, and Roswitha. Anneliese also had an older sister named Martha, who died at the age of 8 due to kidney disease. Anneliese's family was traditional, hardworking, and devoutly Catholic. Her father, Josef, was a World War II veteran. Her mother, Anna, was described as very strict, controlling, and extremely religious. Anna reportedly had a belief that Anneliese had been cursed by a neighbor and was very much a believer in dark magic, curses, and the demonic world. The family attended Mass twice a week. Anneliese had little resistance to childhood diseases, contracting mumps, measles, and scarlet fever before the age of 5, which caused her to be held back a year in school. She later developed other health issues. Anneliese was a good student, excelling in Latin and other studies. She attended the Dahlberg Gymnasium in Aschaffenburg and later the University of Würzburg. At the university, she majored in education and theology. She also had an interest in music. Anneliese was deeply religious. She was known for her devotion to the church and was described by classmates as a religion nut. She was very familiar with the Bible and religious texts. She had a special devotion to Barbara Weigand, a woman from her village known for her piety and who died 10 years before Anneliese's birth. Anneliese also had a strong belief in the Virgin Mary and visited the pilgrimage site of San Damiano multiple times. Before her health issues, Anneliese was described as a happy, engaging, and playful person. She enjoyed athletics, especially tennis. Her family said that when she returned home from the sanatorium, her personality had changed. She became more irritable and withdrawn. She also began to have outbursts of anger and developed a growing resentment for Catholic icons and practices. At 16, she experienced a severe convulsion and was diagnosed with temporal lobe epilepsy. She also began experiencing blackouts and paralysis. She was treated in multiple medical facilities for lung and heart issues and spent time in a sanatorium for children with lung disease. On September 2, 1974, Anneliese Michel wrote a letter to Father Ernst Alt detailing her struggles and lack of control over herself. This letter is noted as a significant moment that marks the escalation of her spiritual and mental crisis. It indicates that her condition was worsening, setting the stage for the events that followed. That same month, Father Alt wrote to Bishop Stangl about Anneliese's condition, requesting permission to perform a solemn exorcism in times of crisis, but this request was denied. He was told to be patient and continue as he had been doing. Then in late 1974, Anneliese experienced a mental breakdown, losing touch with reality and exhibiting different personalities. Her hallucinations became more frequent and intense, and she struggled to distinguish between reality and imagination. She also displayed fits of anger between epileptic attacks. Between January and August 1975, Anneliese Michel's condition steadily worsened, marked by a mix of physical and mental struggles that ultimately led to the beginning of formal exorcism rites. In January, she visited Dr. Schleip, where an EEG showed no new concerns, though she was advised to continue her medication, Tegretol. During this time, she experienced a loss of appetite, appeared pale, and was often depressed, sometimes remaining in bed for days. By the spring, her mental and emotional state became increasingly unstable. The death of her grandmother on May 15, 1975, was a significant event that heightened her stress and sadness. This loss was compounded by the departure of her sister Barbara, who moved away to pursue a career. Around this time, her family and priests began to believe she was experiencing demonic possession. marked by the emergence of multiple personalities, identified as Cain, Nero, Adolf Hitler, Fleischmann, Judas, and Lucifer. Her physical condition also deteriorated. She had trouble walking, bending her legs, and speaking. Anneliese described a terror that went through her limbs, making her feel utterly deserted as if she were in hell, and expressed apathy and recurring thoughts of suicide. This period coincided with a rise in the belief of demonic possession, influenced by the release of The Exorcist in Germany in 1974. During this time, Father Alt and Father Arnold Renz observed Anneliese and became convinced she was possessed, not mentally ill. They based their opinions on subjective observations and the belief that Father Alt was psychic, without any standardized investigative process. In July 1975, Anneliese had an experience where she suddenly dropped to her knees and then was able to stand and walk, claiming she had seen the Virgin Mary. By August, Father Roth shared his experience with Anneliese with Father Alt and agreed that she was under the influence of demonic forces. Then on August 3, 1975, Father Alt, with verbal permission from Bishop Stangl, performed Anneliese's first exorcism. Following a perceived improvement in her condition, Bishop Stangl authorized Father Arnold Renz to proceed with exorcisms, and the family stopped consulting doctors, relying solely on these rites. Throughout this period, Anneliese also did not discuss her visual and auditory hallucinations with neurologists. This phase was marked by a growing conviction that Anneliese was possessed, with the start of exorcisms as the primary response to her suffering, and her physical and mental state declined considerably. Following her first exorcism, Anneliese Michel underwent a further 66 exorcism sessions, which were primarily led by Father Arnold Renz, with Father Ernst Alt also participating and assisting. The exorcisms were based on the old Roman ritual of 1614. Many of the sessions were recorded on audio tapes. The audio recordings of Anneliese Michel's exorcisms capture the intense and disturbing events of those sessions. A total of 42 audio recordings were made, primarily by Father Renz. These tapes document the interactions between the exorcists and the alleged demons.
Wann bist du überhaupt hier?
Ich verbrech das so, dass ich in dem Wald rein bin. Ich trag dir die Rotznase noch so lang, bis es lebt wird. Die Saublöderei. Für uns gibt's kein Zurück. Nie! In alle Ewigkeit!
Sag mir den Namen.
Ich, der Judas, und der Nero, der Kain und der Hitler. 5 Stimmen.
Das ist der 6.
Oh, den haben wir gelogen.
Den habt ihr dazu.
These recordings also capture Anneliese speaking in different voices and languages, including Latin. The exorcism tapes also document the physical struggles of Anneliese, as well as the prayers, blessings, and commands of the exorcists. The tapes reveal that Anneliese reacted violently to holy water and other sacred objects. The priests can be heard reciting prayers, making the sign of the cross, and attempting to expel the demons. The tapes also captured instances of Anneliese's body trembling and twitching, suggesting the intense physical toll of the exorcism. The recordings also reveal Anneliese's claims of being a spectator to the demonic activity, stating that the demons were using her voice and she was only watching. Despite the priest's attempts to use the tapes to prove demonic possession, some experts at the trial would later describe the recordings as monotonous, and stated that Anneliese's unnatural speech indicated a psychogenic posture where she assumed the role of a person dominated by one demon or another. While only a small portion of these tapes have been made public, the recordings are disturbing and difficult to listen to for long periods. The tapes were used as evidence during the trial, with some arguing that they proved demonic possession, while others viewed them as evidence of a mental disorder. Anneliese Michel's journal entries provide a glimpse into her internal struggles, her religious beliefs, and her perceptions of the events surrounding her alleged possession, reflecting her unique perspective on the events that unfolded. She wrote of receiving inspirations from the Mother of God, who told her that things would not always be easy for her, and that she should seek spiritual guidance from Father Arnold. She described a mystical phenomenon she called interlocutions, where she was made to understand things without seeing or hearing anything. The entries also reveal her encounters with demonic entities, such as when Hitler and Cain introduced themselves, or when Lucifer said, "The snot-nose blurt out everything." Now she also receives suggestions from that one, in which that one would be in reference to none other than the Virgin Mary. These demons often used vulgar language and blasphemies, while also discussing the importance of holy objects and practices. Anneliese also recorded the demons expressing their displeasure with changes in the church, such as people standing during Holy Communion instead of kneeling. She also wrote about the demons' influence on her mind, such as the way they introduced insistent impulses towards obsessions, fear, and desperation. At times, Anneliese questioned the origin of the messages she received, stating, "I do not know exactly whether it comes from the Savior or from Satan." She also struggled with the feeling of being controlled by these forces, writing, "And suddenly it was undress. You cannot imagine it. I don't hear it, but suddenly I feel I have to do it." There were times when she felt a compulsion not to eat, despite experiencing hunger. She also wrote about her belief that she might be suffering for the sake of other people. These journal entries, while deeply personal, are open to multiple interpretations. Some may view them as evidence of demonic possession, while others may see them as symptoms of psychological distress influenced by a strict religious upbringing and the suggestions of those around her. Regardless of one's perspective, they offer a profound insight into the intense internal conflict Anneliese experienced during this challenging period of her life. Some of the entries also mention her visions and her encounters with both the Mother of God and the Savior, sometimes in the same entry where she writes of encounters with demons. The Savior told her, "You will come to see why I demand this of you." The Mother of God also told her that later you will also have visions, possibly as a reward for the satanic images she had been seeing. She also records the Mother of God saying that, "On Friday I will come and chase them away." It is important to note that the journal entries are not without limitations. Anneliese's altered state of consciousness, her deeply held beliefs, and the possibility of a subjective interpretation of events could all have influenced what she wrote. From the beginning, Anneliese was an active participant, sometimes communicating or interacting with the priests, and other times being a passive observer of the demons who were speaking through her. The demons were sometimes interrogated by the priests, revealing their names and their reasons for tormenting Anneliese. Some of the demons spoke of being damned and wanting to get out of both hell and Anneliese. The demons would sometimes express their hatred for the holy objects and the prayers of the exorcists, but were also forced to acknowledge their power. The final sessions were marked by a severe decline in her physical condition, exacerbated by the extreme measures taken during these rituals. From September 1975 to June 30, 1976, Anneliese underwent 67 exorcism sessions, some lasting up to 4 hours, and her health deteriorated rapidly due to a lack of food and water. By the time of her final exorcism, she weighed only 68 pounds. She had also sustained injuries, such as broken knees from repeated genuflections and bruises on her face and body. In her last days, Anneliese was often unable to eat, and when she did, it was only in small amounts. She also had difficulty sleeping. Despite her condition, she continued with the exorcisms, driven by her belief that she was suffering for the sins of others. The exorcisms themselves were physically grueling, with Anneliese often restrained with ropes and chains, and family members physically holding her down. The rituals involved constant prayers and blessings, which caused her to react violently. During this period, the demons within her were described as being increasingly silent, only making noises, which was interpreted as a sign of penance possession, whereby she had to suffer for the sins of others. On June 30th, 1976, during what would be her last exorcism, she was recorded as asking for absolution, which she received. She was also noted as having a fever. The combination of starvation, dehydration, physical exhaustion, and injuries ultimately led to her death on July 1st, 1976. Her autopsy confirmed that her death was caused by malnutrition and dehydration. Anneliese's family and the priests involved did not seek medical attention, believing that her condition was spiritual and that the exorcisms were the only way to heal her. Instead, they intensified their activities, convinced they were close to expelling the demons, leading to a tragic and unnecessary death. Anneliese Michel was examined by a plethora of physicians who specialized in general practice, psychiatry, and neurology, all of whom believed she suffered from epilepsy, a condition of the brain. Neurologists, also trained in psychiatry, diagnosed her with either schizophrenic or manic-depressive psychosis, also known as bipolar disorder. One source notes that this disorder, characterized by rapid cycling between depression and mania, is often misdiagnosed as schizophrenia due to symptomatic similarities. Medical experts also diagnosed Anneliese with a psychogenic disorder, suggesting her symptoms were largely psychological, caused by autosuggestion. It was suggested that Anneliese developed delusional thoughts about sin, hallucinations, and a psychotic state. Some medical professionals also believed that the exorcism exacerbated her symptoms, and that she could have been saved had she been treated medically and forced to eat. There is a critique of the medical assessment, noting that the medication didn't stop the seizures, and that they stopped on their own. The demonic faces appeared before the medications, and the assessment presented this theory as an absolute, rather than a hypothesis. The text also criticizes the psychiatrists for attributing all of Anneliese's symptoms to a singular diagnosis, asserting that these medical experts made these assertions without careful consideration of all the evidence. It was also noted that her condition was easily induced by her surroundings as well. According to one source, the symptoms of temporal lobe epilepsy can include seizures, which may manifest in different ways, and the affected person is not always aware when they happen. In addition, Anneliese's ultimate death was caused by malnutrition and dehydration, the symptoms of which can cause serious hallucinations and delusions. A post-mortem examination of Anneliese's body revealed that she was emaciated, dehydrated, and had bruises around the eyes, upon the face, and throughout her body. It was determined that her death was due to starvation, possibly aggravated by physical exertion. Despite the medical diagnoses of epilepsy and psychosis, an autopsy revealed Anneliese had a healthy brain with no damage that could have caused epileptic seizures, even on a microscopic level. It was also noted that her pupils were unusually dilated, and there were no ulcers on her body, which are frequently found in victims of starvation. Anneliese's lack of sleep, along with her hallucinations and delusions, may have contributed to her psychotic states and possibly epileptic seizures. Other medical conditions that were explored as potential causes of Anneliese's symptoms include hyperthyroidism, hypothyroidism, meningitis, pneumonia, high fever, hypercalcemia, hypocalcemia, as well as the possibility of a traumatic brain injury. The aftermath of Anneliese Michel's death was marked by significant legal, social, and religious repercussions. Initially, her father attempted to obtain a death certificate citing natural causes, but the examining physician refused due to the severity of her emaciated state and the presence of numerous injuries. This led to a criminal investigation, and a year later, Anneliese's parents, Joseph and Anna Michel, along with the two priests involved in the exorcisms, Father Arnold Renz and Father Ernst Alt, were charged with negligent homicide. The trial, which began in March 1978, drew considerable media attention both in Germany and internationally, as it was one of the first official and public cases of exorcism in Germany in about 50 years. During the trial, the court heard differing opinions from medical and psychiatric experts, with some arguing that Anneliese suffered from mental illness, possibly epilepsy or a psychogenic disorder exacerbated by the exorcisms, while others maintained that she was a victim of demonic possession. Ultimately, all four defendants were found guilty of manslaughter resulting from negligence and sentenced to 6 months in jail, which were then suspended, and instead they received 3 years of probation. The court ruling was controversial, and many people believed that the defendants were unfairly blamed and that the court failed to consider the spiritual elements of the case. The case brought public attention to the issues of exorcism mental illness, and the clash between faith and reason, highlighting the limitations of purely scientific approaches to understanding religious experiences. Following the trial, there was increased scrutiny of the Catholic Church's practices around exorcism, and it effectively stopped exorcisms in Germany for a time, as no bishop wanted to deal with the power to dismiss demons. Father Renz died in 1986, and Josef Michel died in 1989. Father Alt had a private audience with Pope John Paul II in 1996, potentially seeking understanding and support given the controversies surrounding the case, and his belief that he acted according to the truth and the teachings of the Church. In a 2006 interview, Anneliese Michel stated that she did not regret her actions, saying, "I know we did the right thing because I saw the sign of Christ in her hands." She died in 2012. Father Alt's last known interview took place in 2007. He was retired and living in southern Germany. Some people involved with the case went on to profit from the story through lectures, interviews, and publications. There were also rumors of a Carmelite nun receiving messages relating to Anneliese, which led to an exhumation of Anneliese's body, though it was determined that it showed normal corruption. The events surrounding Anneliese's death also led to the creation of documentaries, books, and movies, including The Exorcism of Emily Rose, released in 2005, is a film that takes inspiration from the story of Anneliese Michel, though it is not a direct retelling of her life. The movie presents a fictionalized account that incorporates elements of both the exorcism and the court case that followed. The film aims to explore the complex themes surrounding demonic possession, faith, and the conflict between scientific and religious interpretations of such phenomena. The plot centers on a young woman, Emily Rose, who undergoes a grueling exorcism, echoing the experiences of Anneliese Michel and the ensuing legal proceedings. The movie recreates the intense atmosphere of Anneliese's exorcisms through the character of Emily Rose, who displays similar behaviors, including speaking in different voices and making growls and screams. Like Anneliese, Emily Rose is portrayed as identifying several demons residing within her, including Lucifer, which is drawn from the real case where demons like Judas, Nero, Cain, and Hitler were also named. The film also includes scenes where the possessed character reacts violently to holy water and other sacred objects, again mirroring the real events. The movie draws inspiration from the audio recordings of Anneliese's exorcisms, using them as a point of reference for the character's vocalizations rather than directly incorporating the real audio tapes. The film's narrative balances different perspectives, presenting both the possibility of demonic possession and the possibility of a mental illness, leaving the audience to decide what they believe to be the truth. The director has stated that his goal was not only to create a scary movie, but to encourage thought about the existence of a spiritual realm and the concepts of God and the devil. While a work of fiction, The Exorcism of Emily Rose captures the disturbing nature of the Anneliese Michel case and serves as an artistic interpretation of the real events. Ultimately, Anneliese Michel's story is a deeply human one, a tale of a young woman caught at the crossroads of faith, science, and societal expectations. It forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about the balance between spiritual beliefs and medical intervention, the responsibility of caregivers, and the ethical implications of practices like exorcism. Her case continues to provoke debate and reflection, reminding us of the importance of compassion, understanding, and the need to approach such situations with care and humility. Whether viewed through the lens of faith, science, or personal tragedy, Anneliese Michel's life and death remain a powerful testament to the complexities of the human experience. What do you think? Was Anneliese Michel a victim of neglect, a martyr of faith, or something else entirely? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video to keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious and take care of each other.